Peace, Israel. This lesson, the title of this lesson is Catholicism, the Pope, the Priesthood. Catholicism, the Pope, and the Priesthood. As we know currently, the Pope is in Mexico, and a lot of people are going crazy over this individual. So we're going to take a closer look at the script. We're going to go into the script and see exactly who is this Pope, what does he represent, does anything he say or does pertain anything to the Most High of this book, to the strong one of the Hebrews, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we will know exactly who this Pope is. Before we start this, I'd like to start with this one verse. Okay, Psalms 119, 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So we simply have to go into the law, and we will look and see exactly if what's being presented to us is true or not. So we're going to go through the script and deal with Catholicism, this Pope, and specifically the priesthood. All right, we'll start off first. Let's go to Exodus 19. Exodus 19, we're going to go with verse 5 and 6. Exodus 19, verse 5 and 6. And verse 5 reads, Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Okay? Above all people, the Most High here is speaking directly to the house of Israel, a bloodline of people coming from the man whose name is Jacob. Okay? And his name was changed to Israel. So we're dealing with a bloodline of people. Okay? If you want to have a clarification on the bloodline of people, look at my video that I have up, who is Jacob or who is the son of Yah. Okay? So you look at that video, it kind of breaks down the whole line of the family. Now let's go to verse 6 of Exodus chapter 19. Verse 6 reads, And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So therefore, Israel as a whole, the entire nation, is to be a nation of priests unto all the other peoples of the earth. So let's make that clear. Now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 7, and we will read verse 6. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. We're going to kind of reiterate exactly who this bloodline of people, who these Israelites are, how important they are. We're not all the same. We're not all equal. Israel is separate and special above all nations on the face of the earth. Okay? So we're going to Deuteronomy 7. We will read verse 6. For thou art an holy people unto thy Lord, thy God, unto thy strong one. That Yah hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all the people that are upon the face of the earth. So if you're an Israelite and you understand clearly that the curses in Deuteronomy 28 is upon you and your people, okay, understand there's a reason why you're being punished more than anyone else of any other nation, okay, because we are a peculiar and special people above all the people on the face of the earth. This is coming from the Most High, and no one trumps that. So there is no equality. Let that be made clear and plain. Next, let's go to Leviticus 20 and verse 24. Just so we kind of establish the house of Israel and who they are. All right. Once again, Leviticus 20, and we're at verse 24. But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit their land, and I will give it unto you to possess it, a land that floweth with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, or I am Yah, your strong one, which have separated you from other people. So we were severed, we were separated from other people. We were not to mingle, we were not to mix with them. And the only reason this mingling and this mixing has taken place is because the Most High had scattered us once we disobeyed these laws. And we will be in these land mingled and defiled among these nations. Okay? But as we return back onto these laws, the first thing we are to do is to separate ourselves from them. That is the first thing that we must do and return to these laws. Okay, so we understand clearly that we were separated from other people. And once we return to the laws, we will also have to separate ourselves from other people. Okay, so now let's go to Exodus. We're going to go up to Exodus. We're going to still stay in the 20th chapter, or we're going to read verse 1 and verse 5. 1 second. Exodus. Exodus 20, verse 1 and 5. Exodus 20, verse 1 reads, "And Yah spake all these words, saying," now let's go to verse 5. "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yah, am a jealous God," or a jealous strong one, "visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me." So those who have hated the Most High, all the sins are visited upon us from the third to the fourth generation if we fail to return to these laws. And that's why we see this suffering generation after generation. We're marching for the same causes we have 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and our treatment has not changed because our behaviors have not returned to these laws. So we must be mindful of that, okay, that we must return to these laws. Now we're going to go to Exodus. Still staying in Exodus, we're going to go to verse 8. Okay, we are to remember the Sabbath and to keep it holy. This is important for us, to remember the Sabbath and to keep it holy. And now we'll go, that is just a few verses for us to understand that we're not all the same. Israel is a peculiar people, separated from the other nations, and Israel is to be a nation of priests unto all the other nations of the earth. Israel was the only nation that ever received the laws of the Most High. No other nation received the laws of the Most High. While I'm saying that, let me go ahead and cover that. 1 second. So you're aware of it. It's not just being said, it can be confirmed. All right, let's go to Psalms 147, and we'll read verse 19 and verse 20, which will give us proof. These are the precepts used so we know that the laws of the Most High was never given to any other nation except the house of Israel. So anyone of the house that's not of the house of Israel is trying to teach you the word of Yah or the word of the strong one of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. They don't know it. Okay, so that's the most important thing for you to understand. They were not given these laws, so they cannot teach you the words of the Most High if it has never been given to them. This word will be brought to you by Israel. Okay, so here we are, Psalms 147, and we will read verse 19. "He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and for his judgments they have not known them. Praise ye Yah." So the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he is saying clearly here, is being stated, we know that he has not dealt with any of the other nations. They never knew his judgments. They were never given his laws. The laws were given unto the house of Israel. Okay, and because Israel transgressed those laws, that is why we see these harsh judgments and the other nations do not. All right. Now let's go ahead and deal with things pertaining to the priesthood. Let's go to Numbers. We're going to go with Numbers. We're going to go with chapter 1 in Numbers. Start up with chapter 1. And we're going to go to verse 47. All right. We're at Numbers chapter 1, verse 47. And we will read 47 through 53. But the Levites, after the tribe of their fathers, were not numbered among them. Meaning, when Moses was commanded to take the number of the children of Israel, what he did not do, he did not take any numbers for the houses of Levi. Okay, every other tribe was numbered except the tribe of Levi. Now we're going to go to verse 48 of Numbers chapter 1. For Yahweh had spoken unto Moses, saying, Only thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi, neither take the sum of them among the children of Israel. But thou shalt appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony. We already know the testimony of the laws, the two tablets is placed inside the ark. And all of the vessels thereof, and over all things that belong to it. They shall bear the tabernacle and all the vessels thereof, and they shall minister unto it, and shall encamp round about the tabernacle. Verse 51. And when the tabernacle setteth forward, the Levites shall take it down. When the tabernacle is to be pitched, the Levites shall set it up, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. Meaning, anyone that came close to that tabernacle that was not a Levite and had no business dealing in that manner, they would be put to death. Okay, so you were not to come. No one of the house of Israel was able to enter that tabernacle at the time, and it was pretty much a tent. Before Solomon built the first temple, it was a tent. The tabernacle was. You could not go in the tabernacle. If you were not a priest, you were not allowed to enter in there. When the temple was built, if you were not a priest consecrated, you could not go in the temple. Okay? Excuse me. So keep those things in mind. So we understand clearly that anyone that came close to that area, I mean, they were put to death. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now let's go to Numbers 3. Numbers chapter 3. And we'll read verse 9. And verse 9 reads of Numbers chapter 3. And thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. So the tribe of Levi was given unto Aaron. Aaron is the priest. Okay? So from Aaron's bloodline, you have the priesthood. If that's clear to you, okay? From Aaron's bloodline, you have the priesthood. You're a priest, your son's a priest, your son's a priest, etc. Anybody can't be a priest, okay? Someone from the house of Judah is not going to be a priest. A Benjamite can't be a priest. Issachar can't be a priest. All right? Zebulun can't be a priest. Dan can't be a priest. Asher can't be a priest. The priests are of the house of Levi. That's it. Secondly, there can be no priest unless they are of the house of Israel, period. And we know that the tribe of Levi is of the house of Israel. So another nation can't be a priest. A Canaanite can't be a priest. There could be no such thing. Okay, a Moabite can't be a priest. All right, if you are not of the house of Israel, and specifically a Levite, you cannot hold any priest position at all, period. This is in the law. All right, now let's jump down 2 verses, and we're going to read Numbers chapter 3, verse 11 and 12. And Yah spake unto Moses, saying, And I, behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of all the firstborn that openeth the matrix among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine. Okay? And verse 13 reads, Because all of the firstborn are mine. For on the day that I smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I hallowed unto me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast. Mine shall they be. I am Yah. Now, what has taken place here? The Most High wanted all the firstborn, man and beast, of Israel to be his. But he took the Levites instead. So the Levites are special unto the Most High, unlike any other tribe in the house of Israel. The Levites, they did not get a land of inheritance. All the other tribes have specific lands in the land mass of Israel, which is much bigger than the geographical location that you see today. Okay, so every tribe was given their allotted land for them to dwell in. The Levites were not given any land because their inheritance was not land. Their inheritance is the Most High himself. They will minister unto him, take care of his temple, take the sacrifices from the people, etc. That's their job. Okay, so they were not giving any land. The Levites are dispersed among the many tribes of the house of Israel. All right. Now let's go to Numbers chapter 4, and we will read verse 3. And Numbers chapter 4, verse 3 reads, "From 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation, about the most holy things." Now, in the temple, there were those who washed the basins and they didn't do the sacrifices, but those that took on certain duties of the temple. They did not directly minister to the Most High. Okay, those individuals of the house of Levi, this service was done from the age of 30 until the age of 50. Okay, and these are not the priests; these are just regular Levites. Okay, their service was for roughly 20 years, from 30 years old and up unto 50. All right, so keep that in mind. Next, we will go to Numbers chapter 8. Numbers chapter 8, and we will start at 11. We're probably going to go from 11 to 20, but let's start with Numbers chapter 8 and verse 11. "And Aaron shall offer the Levites before Yah for an offering of the children of Israel, and that they may execute the service of Yah." So the whole tribe of Levi was offered, okay, was offered as an offering before Yah. All right, so you understand that. "And the Levites," this is verse 12, "and the Levites shall lay their hands upon the heads of the bullocks, and thou shalt offer one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering unto Yah, to make an atonement for the Levites." Verse 13, "And thou shalt set the Levites before Aaron and before his sons, and offer them for an offering unto Yah." So all the Levites, Aaron and his sons, they were offered as an offering before Yah. Verse 14, "Thus shalt thou separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine." So once again, the Levites were totally separated from the rest of the house of Israel because they are the Most High. They belong to the Most High, and the Most High is their inheritance. So they are a special group of men in the house of Israel, unlike any regular Israelite of any of the other tribes. And after that, we're at verse 15. "And after that shall the Levites go in to do service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and thou shalt cleanse them and offer them for an offering." Verse 16, "For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of such as open every womb, even instead of the firstborn of all the children of Israel, have I taken them unto me." So the Most High had made a decision initially that he was going to actually just take the firstborn of every man and beast out of the house of Israel. And then he made it to where, nope, I'm going to take it specifically from the house of Levi. I will take Levi, and that's it. Okay? So that's, there are special people unto him within the house of Israel. And we're going to go all the way to verse 20. Let's go now to verse 17. "For all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On that day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself." Okay, so all Israel belongs to him anyway. Okay, but he has a special covenant with the house of Levi. Verse 19, "And I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and to his sons from among the children of Israel, to do the service of the children of Israel in the tabernacle of the congregation, and to make an atonement for the children of Israel, that there be no plague among the children of Israel when the children of Israel come nigh unto the sanctuary. Okay, so we understand clearly here that the house of Israel, there is a tribe called the Levites who are specifically the priest. And not anyone can be the priest. You have to be of the house of Levi. And the priest is a bloodline. You're a priest, your son's a priest, your father before you were a priest, etc. It does not leave that bloodline. All right. Now, let's go to Numbers. We can go to Numbers 8. We'll go to verse 23. We're going to read verse 23 through verse 25. We're still in Numbers chapter 8. And verse 23 of Numbers chapter 8 read, And Yah spake unto Moses, saying, This is it that belongeth unto the Levites. From 25 years old and upward, they shall go in to wait upon the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. And from the age of 50 years, they shall cease waiting upon the service thereof, and shall serve no more. Verse 26, But shall minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of the congregation to keep the charge, and shall do no service. Thus shalt thou do unto the Levites touching their charge. So therefore, you are to be of service within the priesthood, okay, 25 years to 50 years old. That's it. Okay, if you're doing other services, it's from 30 to 50. But what you do not have, you do not have an 80-year-old priest. It's not happening. 60 years old, no. 51 years old, no. At 50 years, it is over. Okay, your service is complete. These are the laws of Yah in the book of the law. So now, you have to ask yourself with this Pope. Ask yourself about your quote-unquote pastor that you've got. Okay, does he understand this? Does he adhere to this law? Does he even understand it? Okay, and we're going to touch more on this in a second. So therefore, a pope that's holding some mass somewhere, and he's 85 years old, or he's been the pope for 40 years or something of that sort, we know this is idolatry, and we will cover this. Okay, so right now I'm just kind of giving you a guide so you understand when you see this idolatry and this madness, you can identify it. All right, now let's go to Numbers 8. We've already read Numbers 8, verse 26. Now let's go to Numbers chapter 16. Numbers chapter 16, and we will deal with verse 40. All right, verse 40 of Numbers chapter 16 reads, To be a memorial unto the children of Israel, that no stranger, which is not of the seed of Aaron, come near to offer incense before Yah, that he be not as Korah, and as his company. And the Lord said to him by the hand of Moses, as Yah said to him by the hands of Moses. So what has happened here is there was a gentleman by the name of Korah, and he was of the seed of Levi, but he was not a priest. So what he wanted to do, he became jealous of Aaron, and apparently he wanted to be in the priesthood. Okay, or he wanted to kind of hijack the priesthood. He wasn't content with the position that he had. And the Most High pretty much opened up the ground and swallowed him up and all his cohorts, everyone that was dealing with him, okay, to make an example of him in front of the congregation of the house of Israel. So we understand that we're not to challenge the priest, and we're not to try to take the priesthood. The only people that actually hold the position of the priesthood are those who are the direct seed of Aaron. And that's it. Okay? So we understand clearly who can be priest. You can only be priest if you're the seed of Aaron. That's it. Okay? And later on you will see it becomes the seed of Zadok. Okay? So that's it for the priesthood. All right? Any man can become priest. And we will cover a few things pertaining to this. As it relates to Catholicism, We understand that these popes are from all these many different nations and from these many different nationalities. Okay, this is not what Yah says. This is not what the law says. The law says clearly any priest of the Most High has to be of this bloodline of Aaron, and he has to be of the house of Israel, and he has to be a Levite, and he cannot be a priest no longer than 25 years. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, does Catholicism follow this? Does this Pope follow this? Of course not, because this is idolatry. Okay, now we're going to go to Numbers chapter 18. Numbers chapter 18, verse 8. All right. Numbers chapter 18, verse 8, and it reads, And Yah spake unto Aaron, Behold, I also have given thee the charge of mine heave offerings, of all the hallowed things of the children of Israel. Unto thee have I given them by reason of the anointing, and to thy sons by an ordinance forever. Okay, so the heave offering, and we will cover that in a second. The heave offering is the house of Israel gave a tenth to the priest. Whatever the priest received, they took a tenth of that and they gave a heave offering. That's what that heave offering was. Okay, so, excuse me, this priesthood is a covenant between Aaron and the Most High, the house of Levi and the Most High. This is forever. So the priesthood never changes. It is of a bloodline, and that is it. Okay? So there's no priest from Argentina, priest from Mexico, priest from Czechoslovakia, priest from Uganda, priest from America, one from Canada, one from Haiti. No, there's no such thing. Okay? So that's why it's important that you read this law and know it. All right. Let's go to, we're going to go back. Let's go to Numbers 18. We're still in 18. Let's jump down to verse 19 and 21. We read verse 19 and we'll read all the way up to 21. Numbers chapter 18, verse 19. And it reads, All the heave offerings of the holy things which the children of Israel offer unto Yah have I given thee, and thy sons, and thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. That's perpetual. Okay? It is a covenant of salt forever before Yah unto thee and thy seed with thee. Children, children's children, son, 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 son. It's a perpetual covenant that the Most High have right here with Aaron and the seed of Levi, in the house of Levi, seed of Aaron. Okay? So this is forever that they will hold this priesthood. It doesn't switch. It doesn't change. Okay. Now let's go to verse 20 of Numbers 18. And Yah spake unto Aaron, Thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. So once again, I've told you earlier that the Levites did not have any land. The inheritance of the house of Levi, or the tribe of Levi, is the Most High himself. We just read this. Okay? 21, verse 21 of Numbers chapter 18. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for an inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Okay, so that's that tenth we spoke of. All right. So that was given when the Israelites brought a tenth of their fruits, etc. Once again, this was not money. Okay. It was a tenth of your harvest. You brought the best of what you had of your flock for the sacrifices of your harvest. You bought the best you had. That 10% of your reapings you gave to the priest, because the priest had no land. That's how the priest ate from your offerings, and that's how their families were sustained. Nowhere does it say you gave them money. All right. So if someone can't prove to you he's a Levite, that's number one. If someone can't prove to you he's following these laws, you have no business giving him a dime. unless he just happens to be poor and you're trying to help him. You have no business giving him any money. Okay, that's for those of you who don't even understand what tithing is and what it was for, and most importantly, who it was to. Okay, now this tenth that we just read about, let's go back to see where this tenth came in, because it could have been a 20th, a 30th, but it's a tenth. Okay, so let's go and show you where this came in with Jacob. Let's go to Numbers. Nope, 1 second. Let's go to Genesis. Genesis 28. Before we do that, let's go to, we're still in Numbers 18. Let's go to 18:25. Let's read that. And then we're going to go to Genesis. All right. Numbers chapter 18, and we'll read verse 25. And Yah spake unto Moses, saying, Thus speak unto the Levites, and say unto them, When ye take of the children of Israel the tithes, which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then ye shall offer up an heave offering of it for Yah, even a tenth part of the tithe. Okay, so whatever was given to the priest, okay, the priest had to take a tenth of that and offer it as a heave offering unto the Most High. Okay, hope you understand that. Now, let's go and figure out where this 10th thing came from. Let's go to Genesis 28, verse 22. So we kind of get a clear understanding of where this is coming from. All right. Once again, we're in Genesis 28, and we're at verse 22. This pertains to Jacob, okay? Let's go ahead and start at verse 20. Okay, let's go to Genesis 28. We'll go to verse 20 and bring it on down to verse 22. All right, so here we are. Verse 20. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If Yah will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so will I come again to my father's house in peace. Then shall Yah be my strong one. And this stone, he made an altar, and this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be Yah's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. So our forefather Jacob, who in essence is Israel, from whom bloodline we are from, he is the first person to have done this. And this remains throughout the generations of the house of Israel. So you know where that tenth came from. And once again, it was never money. Okay, let's get that clear. All right, we've covered that. Now, let's go to First Chronicles. First Chronicles chapter 15. And we will go with verse 2. First Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. 1 second to get there. First Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. 1 second. First Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. And it reads, Then David said, None ought to carry the ark of Yah but the Levites. For them hath Yah chosen to carry the ark of Yah, and to minister unto him forever. Okay, so once again we see even into Chronicles, okay, no one was allowed to carry that ark unless you were a Levite. Okay, because the Levites were the only ones that could minister unto the people, and the priests were able to minister unto Yah himself. And they are to do this forever. Okay, so this is pretty much reiterating to let you know that can't anyone be the priest. Okay, it is not a position that can be held by anyone. All right, it has to be specific. You have to be of the house of Israel, and you have to be of the tribe of Levi, period. Okay, all right, now let's go to Second Chronicles. We're going to go to chapter 26, and we will cover verse 16 and 20. Second Chronicles 26. 2 Chronicles 26, and we will go with verse 16 through 20. So you can see what happened to Uzziah, okay, who was Ahaz's grandfather. All right. Now, we'll start at verse 16. Once again, we're at 2 Chronicles 26, and we'll start at verse 16. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he transgressed against Yah, his strong one, and went into the temple of Yah to burn incense upon the altar of incense. So now, this king, or this governor, correct term used, Uzziah, I guess he got a little proud of himself and started feeling too good. He wanted to go into the temple of the Most High and light incense. Now, once again, I've told you before, you are not allowed into the temple of the Most High. No one is allowed to go into that temple. No one's allowed to light incense to that temple or light the censer unless you are of the house of Levi and you are a priest. It cannot be done. Okay, you're not to enter into that building, period. All right, verse 17. And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests. 80. That's 80 of them. Okay? And with him 80 priests of Yah that were valiant men. Or these are warriors. You understand? Okay, so you have 80 men going after Uzziah, who is the governor at the time. Okay, while he's trying to bust his way into the temple. And they withstood Uzziah the king, and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto Yah, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed. Neither shall it be for thine honor from Yah. Or it says here in the book, from the Lord. Okay? So this is not a good thing. This is a bad thing. Okay, what he has done. Verse 19. Then Uzziah was wroth. He was angry, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priest in the house of Yah, from besides the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead. And they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hasted also to go out, because Yah had smitten him. So here you have Uzziah. He wanted to go into the temple. He's the governor at the time, who you call king. Correct term, governor. He got proud, went into the temple with his censer, wanted to light incense to the Most High. This is not to be done. He resisted the priest, went into the temple, and tried to do this anyway. And while he was trying to do this, the Most High smote him with leprosy on his forehead while he was still speaking. Okay, so you understand the importance of the Levites. Their job cannot be done by anyone in the house of Israel except Levites, except priests. Okay, so we understand the importance of the priesthood. That's why we're going over this. Okay, now let's go to Chronicles 31. We will read verse 17 and 19. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles 31. Just flip over a few chapters. 2 Chronicles chapter 31, and we'll start off with verse 17 through 19. And verse 17 reads, 2 Chronicles verse 31. Both the genealogy of the priests by the house of their fathers, and the Levites from 20 years old and upward, in their charge by their courses, and to the genealogy of all their little ones, their wives and their sons, and their daughters throughout all the congregation. For in their set offices they sanctified themselves in holiness. Also the sons of Aaron, the priests, which were in the fields of the suburbs of their cities, in every several city, the men that were expressed by name, to give portions to all the males among the priests, and to all that were reckoned by genealogies among the Levites. So, for you to be a Levite and you to be a priest, number one, if you're a Levite, you have to be of the house of Levi, bloodline. If you're going to be a priest, your father had to be a priest before you. They were reckoned by genealogy. That's bloodline, aka genetics. Okay? So you just can't be a priest because you feel like it. You can't be a priest because you went to some seminary school. Okay? You can't be a priest from Bolivia, one from Argentina, one from Czechoslovakia, one from Russia, one from Mexico. Doesn't work that way. So says Yah in his laws. Okay? So we've read 17 through 19 as we speak about the genealogies or the genealogy of these priests. Okay? So now, let's go. Everyone is verified by bloodline. Let's go to Nehemiah, and we will cover Nehemiah. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 7. Nehemiah chapter 7. Nehemiah 7. And we will go with verse 64. Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 64. And it reads, these sought their registration or their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy, but it was not found. Therefore were they as polluted, put from the priesthood. So as Nehemiah had gone through all the records trying to establish who the Levites were. This is after the captivity. We're trying to establish who our Levites were, and we're trying to establish everyone by genealogy, by genes. Who was your father and your father before him, etc., etc., etc. So we had to verify exactly that you were indeed a Levite and that you were indeed of the priestly tribe and that bloodline of priest. And those that gave their names claiming to be priest or of the priest bloodline, once that could not be verified, they were counted or reckoned to be polluted, and they were removed from the priesthood. That's how important this is. Okay? So they were actually by bloodline. So therefore, with all the technologies of our enemies nowadays, they know clearly who the house of Israel is, because I'm certain in the land of Israel they have dug up some bones somewhere, I'm certain, and have run the DNA of those ancient peoples there, and they know clearly who the house of Israel is, because we will have a specific gene unlike anyone on the face of the earth. It's going to be specific. And genealogy is not going to tell any lies when it comes to DNA. Okay? So this is a special group of people identified by genealogy, not what they believe, by strictly bloodline. Okay? Now let's go to 1 Kings. Let's go to 1 Kings. We're going to go to 1 Kings 6. We're going to read 9 and 14. 1 Kings verse 6. Chapter 6, excuse me. 1 Kings chapter 6. Excuse me. 1 Kings chapter 6, we're going to read verse 9. And it reads, so he built the house and finished it and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. This is Solomon. Okay, Solomon built the first temple of the Most High. Before that, it was called a tabernacle. It was simply a tent. Okay, David wanted to build a house to the Most High, but the Most High told him he would allow his son Solomon to do it. So Solomon was the one that built the first house to the Most High. Okay, let's go down to verse 14 of the same chapter. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 14. So Solomon built the house and finished it. All right. And let's jump over same chapter, verse 38. Verse 38 of 1 Kings chapter 6. And in the 11th year, in the month Bull, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it. So was he 7 years in building it. So the first house took Solomon 7 years to build. The first house of the Most High. Okay? The first house of the Most High is the first temple. Okay? Now, we've covered Solomon building that first house. and we covered when it was finished. Now, let's go to Ezra, and then we'll finish up. We're going to go to Ezra. Let's go to Ezra. We're going to go to chapter 2. Ezra 2, and we're going to read verse 62 to confirm that when your genealogy was checked and we couldn't find any records that you were of this specific bloodline, you got the boot from the priesthood. Okay? Let's go to Ezra chapter 2, verse 62. Once again, these, an individual of Israelites or a bunch of Israelites who had claimed to be of the house of Levi and claimed to be priests or of the priest bloodline. These sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy, bloodline. But they were not found. Therefore were they as polluted, put from the priesthood. And then to list the individuals' names. Okay, so if it couldn't be verified that you were of this bloodline, you were put from the priesthood. You were considered to be polluted. Okay, so now let's deal with the second temple of the Most High. Okay, the second temple. Let's go to Ezra 6, and we'll read verse 15 and 16. Ezra 6, and we'll read once again verse 15 and 16. Verse 15 of Ezra chapter 6 reads, "And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month Adar, which was in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king." Okay? Verse 16, "And the children of Israel, the priest, and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity, kept the dedication of this house of Yah with joy." This is the second house that was built. And this house was built by a man called Zerubbabel. Keep that in mind. Okay? This was built by Zerubbabel. So now we have two houses built by the Most High, or for the Most High. First one, built by Solomon. Second one, built by Zerubbabel and the children of the captivity when we came back from captivity. All right? Now, the Most High had two houses built. Now let's look at exactly where it was built. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 3, 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. And it reads in 2 Chronicles 3, verse 1. "Then Solomon began to build the house of Yah at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where Yah appeared unto David his father in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite." So, this temple was built at Mount Moriah. So was the second temple built at Mount Moriah, which we call the Temple Mount today. So now, the Most High had said when this house was built, the second one by Zerubbabel, okay, he asked the house of Israel, how does this house compare to the first house? Does it not pair in comparison? It's not as glorious as the first house. But the Most High said the latter house, which is the third one, is going to be even more glorious, more so than the previous two. So, two of them built on the same spot. The third one will be built on the same spot. So whatever's sitting on the Temple Mount right now won't be there when that third temple is built. Okay? So keep that in mind. So, when you think of it and you hear that the Most High had only had two houses built, one by Solomon, one by Zerubbabel, both of those houses has been destroyed because of Israel's transgression, and Israel has been scattered. So there's no need for a third temple to be at the Temple Mount right now because the true house of Israel is not there. They are still scattered, or we are still scattered. And that temple will not be built until we are on those grounds. So you have to ask yourself this. I hear our people who are unaware that they are the house of Israel say, you know, on Sunday mornings they're going to church and they're going to the house of God. And you can't do this in the house of God and that, the house of God this and the house of God that. You know how it goes. So, the Most High is letting us know, our prophets are letting us know, that only 2 houses were built to the Most High. 2 of them. And they were built on the same spot. The Most High doesn't have 1,500 houses in South Carolina, 1,500 houses in North Carolina, 100 houses in Delaware, 500 in Turkey, 300 in Germany, 600 in the Ukraine, 50 in Russia, 35 in Brazil, 1,500 in Belgium. There's no such thing. The Most High had 2 houses built, same spot. The 3rd one will be built on the same spot. So now you have to ask yourself, if the Most High had 2 houses built on the same spot and the 3rd one of his will be on the same spot, what is that you go to? What is that you go to 2 times a week, 3 times a week? And why are there so many of them in all these different lands? What they are houses of idol worship. That's what they are. And once you wake up to this law, once you wake up to who you are and what you must do, you will refrain far from it. We are to do away with these idols. And if this message is tough for you to understand, it's because these idols have been a stumbling block to you. You still have it in your heart, and it's going to be a problem for you. Okay, so you've got to, once you remove yourself from these, I'm trying to find this. You remove yourself from these idols, then things become a little easier for you, and you won't have the stumbling blocks. Let me read this so you understand. If this message is tough for you to grasp, especially if you're in the house of Israel, okay, there's a reason why. You have this idol in your heart, and this idol will be a stumbling block for you. In other words, you won't receive this message. Okay, so here we are. Let's go to Ezekiel 14. Ezekiel 14, or Ezekiel chapter 14. Let's read some of that. Then came certain of the elders of Israel unto me, and sat before me. This is Ezekiel speaking. And the word of Yah came unto me, saying, this is the Most High speaking through Ezekiel. Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their hearts. That's all these idolatrous churches you go to, okay, which are plenty in number in all the different lands of the earth. Once again, verse 3, Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their hearts, and put the stumbling block of their iniquity before their face. Should I be inquired of at all by them? Therefore speak unto them, and say unto them, Thus saith Yah, every man of the house of Israel that setteth up his idols in his heart, and putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face, and cometh to the prophet, I Yah will answer him that cometh according to the multitude of his idols. So, any man of Israel that comes to the prophets trying to inquire of the Most High through the prophets, the Most High is not going to deal with him, because he has a stumbling block before his face. Idols. You need to continue to read the whole chapter. Okay, so you understand this. Now, the Most High said he will answer him according to the multitude of his idols. Let's read verse 5. That I may take the house of Israel in their own heart, because they are all estranged from me through their idols. So if you understand that you're the house of Israel, you have to clearly take a look at what got us in this mess. Then you have to do some investigating to see if we're still in it. When you look into the Council of Nicaea and how the whole Catholic Church got started, you will realize that these are the enemies of the house of Israel, and ultimately the enemies of Yah. The different denominations of Christianity, the head of all of this is Catholicism. You understand? Because you can't find a Southern Baptist church, Anglican church, Seventh-day Adventist, or any of that foolishness, or what is it, Charles T. Russell and the rest of them. You can't find that in this book. It doesn't exist. The Most High people are called Israelites. Nothing else. Israelites. And that's it. And the Most High never told us we need to dip in the water anywhere. And he told us specifically no man can die for our sins. Okay, Deuteronomy 24 verse 16. Each man died for his own sin. Okay, so we know good and well a lot of what's being fed to us are lies. We can determine what's lie and what's true by looking into this law. Okay, so we know in Mount Moriah, that's where the temple was built, the first two, and that's where the third one will be. And the Most High doesn't have 1,000,000 houses throughout the earth. So let's make that clear. Now let's cover the last thing pertaining to the priest. Let's go to Leviticus 21. This speaks specifically to the priest, and I'll give you a quick summary, and we'll wrap this up. It'll be an hour-long lesson. All right, it beats you looking at basketball or some of these stupid TV shows that keeps you in idolatry. Okay, let's go to Leviticus, and we're going to deal with 21. That pertains to the priesthood. All right, Leviticus 21. And let's start with verse 1 so you understand what it's speaking of. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1. And Yah said unto Moses, speak unto the priest. So this pertains to the priest. Speak unto the priest, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, there shall none be defiled for the dead among his people. Let's go ahead and jump to verse 5. We're going to just jump through this chapter a little bit. Verse 5. They shall not make baldness upon their head. Our priests are not to be bald. Okay, even I grow out a little bit of hair. I don't keep my head bald. Not telling you that I'm a priest, but I have read, returned to these laws, and I follow them. And the information that I'm aware of, I try to share it with those who seek it. Okay? Once again, we'll read chapter 21 of Leviticus. We're at verse 5. They shall not make baldness upon their head, neither shall they shave up the corners of their beard, nor make any cuttings in their flesh. This is to the whole house of Israel anyway. All the men of Israel are to have beards on their faces. They're to have hair on their head, and they're not to have any cuttings in their flesh. We're not to have tattoos. Part of the law. Okay? We're not to line up our beards. It's to have its natural line. You're not to have lines and little skinny strings on the sides of your face or any foolishness like that. So once you understand your Israel, you have to make a decision whether you're going to return to these laws or not. And there are two ways. Return to them, live, don't do it, and die. Those are your choices. Now let's go to verse 7 of the same chapter. They shall not take a wife that is a whore. This pertains to the priest. Our priests can't take wives that are whores or profane. Neither shall they take a woman put away from her husband. If she's divorced, the priest can't marry her. For he is holy unto his strong one. He's holy unto Yah. Okay? Now we're going to go to verse 9. The daughter of any priest, if she profanes herself by playing the whore, she profaneth her father. She shall be burnt with fire. So we have to understand, as the house of Israel, what one of us, the things that one of us do affects the rest of us. Okay? What we fail to understand is that I'm going for mine. I'm going to do what I want to do. Doesn't work that way. What one in the house of Israel does, it affects the rest of us. And we need to understand this. We are a nation of people. This is not a solo act. Why do you think we all face the same difficulties? Okay? Now, let's go ahead and go to verse 10. We're just going through this specific chapter, and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, verse 10 reads, and he that is the high priest among his brethren, upon whose head the anointing oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor rend his clothes. The priest can't tear his clothes, and the priest can't walk around with nothing on his head. The priest has a bonnet on his head. of the house of Israel. So anyone that's telling you that, oh, you can't, you can't have something on your head can't be covered, that's nonsense. That's not in this law. They got that foolishness from the New Testament. That's not true. The law states our priest doesn't walk around without his bonnet on his head. He has to have it on at all times. All right. Now, let's go to verse 12. Neither shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his strong one, of Yah. For the crown of the anointing oil of his strong one is upon him. I am Yah. So the anointing oil is upon our priest because he is consecrated. Okay? So he's not to go out of the sanctuary. And he's not to profane the sanctuary of Yah. Okay? Verse 13. And he shall take a wife in her virginity. All right? So he just can't go marry a woman that got 3 kids, got divorced from some other man. Okay? Verse 14. A widow or a divorced woman or profaned or a harlot, these shall he not take, but he shall take a virgin of his own people to wife. A virgin of his own people to wife. His own people would be Levites. His own people would be the house of Israel. So a priest can't go marry another woman of another nation. Doesn't work that way. Okay? Now, we have read verse 14. Let's read verse 15. Then I'm going to summarize this whole class. Verse 15. Neither shall he profane his seed. He shall not profane his seed among his people. For I, Yah, do sanctify him. All right. So our priests are not to be laying down with women out the blue, spreading his seed amongst the house of Israel. Okay? Your pastor, or some pastors, most of them, a lot of them, number one, they're in idolatry first off. First off, they're in idolatry. But a lot of these men are sleeping with the women in their congregation. That goes against what we just read. Okay? So, a lot of these men take money from you. That goes against what we have read. Excuse me. A lot of these men have this idol in their heart. That goes against what we have just read. Okay? So, a lot of these men have you coming into buildings, harlot houses, to teach you of an idol. And they call it God's house. When Yah lets us know clearly only 2 houses have been built. And they've been built on the same spot. So you need to reconsider exactly what it is you're doing. Now, let's deal with the priest. If you read, like I said, you can look up the Council of Nicaea and start really seeing what Constantine have done pertaining to Christianity, where all of this stuff comes from. It's all man-made. Keep in mind, the Most High never gave his people religion. The Most High gave the house of Israel laws, and he only gave those laws to us, not anyone else. Okay? So these other nations can do what they want to do. We can't do what they do. We can't eat what they eat. We can't marry them either and have kids with them. We're not supposed to. That would be polluting the holy seed. And I will do a class on that. There should be no mixing in Israel with these other nations. It is forbidden. Okay? In other words, it is a sin. All right? And I will make that clear on the class. And we're going to back it up with scriptures. Okay? So number one, let's look at the Pope. He's about 105 years old, something like that. He's a pretty old fella. All right? He's Edomite too. He's not of the house of Israel. Because what he has to do, if he's supposedly representing the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he has to show us where, number one, any of the curses from Deuteronomy 28 falls upon him and his people. He can't show you that. He has to show you where him and his people have been in bondage to other nations. He can't show you that. Period. So, it's not him. He's not the people of the Most High. Secondly, he has to show you where he is of a bloodline of priests. And he has to show you where he understands this law and keeps it. He doesn't do that. He has a graven image on his wall. He kissed statues. He has statues of people, women and men, in his Vatican. Most High never told us about a Vatican at all. Most High never said he had a house in Italy at all. Okay, does not exist. Okay, so therefore, we know good and well this is idolatry. The Most High never said his priest couldn't marry. As a matter of fact, you can't be a priest unless someone did marry and produced you, because you can only be a priest through bloodline, by genealogy. The Catholic priest, he is not allowed to marry. He's supposed to take an oath of celibacy. And they're from many nations, all of them. That contradicts the laws of the Most High. That's why they're a bunch of homosexuals and pedophiles. They are in idolatry. Read Deuteronomy 4. We saw no similitude of a man. And we're not to make no graven images that's made by the hands of a man, that looks and have the appearance of a man. We're not to bow down to it, worship it, or anything of that sort. The Catholics do it. So if you are excited about this Pope, you're in idolatry. You just don't know it. You just need to do some studying, do some research, go into this law, read it, and return to it. Especially if you're the house of Israel. And those of you who are not of the house of Israel, that seeks after righteousness and the things that pleases the Most High, you can do that too. Because the Most High said his house will be a house for all people. You can't come in there. Okay, and strangers are not to be in the congregation of Israel. Okay, however, strangers, people of other nations who hear this word and make a decision to, okay, I'm going to submit and I'm going to obey, you too can be accepted. You won't be an Israelite. You can't run anything. You can't be priest. Okay, but you can save your seed from the destruction that's coming to the nations who have abused and murdered the children of Israel. Okay, so all hope is not lost for those other nations who seek to make peace with the Most High, to follow his laws, but you're going to have to bow down to the house of Israel, his son. Okay, so keep those things in mind. And the priesthood is of a bloodline. The priesthood is of the house of Israel, of the tribe of Levi. The Pope and his cohorts and the rest of these other religions, man-made, is simply idolatry. And if you're the house of Israel, I suggest you get far away from it. That's your lesson today, Israel. 1 hour, 8 minutes. I hope it's giving you some insight into the priesthood and who you are and what you should do. Once again, if you want to know who Israel is, the house of Israel, where they are, what has happened to them, read Deuteronomy 28 and then look around your places where you live and see who those curses are upon. And whoever those people are, there you have it. They are the house of Israel. Peace, Israel.